Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Ekman of Gold Derby, and here with me is Lorna Courtney, the star of & Juliet, the great new musical on Broadway. Uh, Lorna, this show is so high energy, and you, as the title character, are on stage a lot of the time, dancing and belting out these very impressive pop numbers. How do you sort of maintain your endurance for this show and to do it 8 times a week?
Yes, thank you, Sam. And that is a great question. I think I'm still figuring it out every week. I like to try different things, but what I found the most helpful is making sure I have a complete whole diet, like nutritious meals throughout the day, and even like before, during, and in between the show. I'll eat after the show, and I also love taking Epsom salt baths afterwards. I work with a movement and alignment coach, Marcia Polas, and so we do a lot of like cranial sacral therapy, and we do myofascial release. And she has me doing like core exercises before the show to engage and get ready. And yeah, it's made me aware of my body and what I what I can do to make sure I'm not like hurting myself in any way, vocally or physically.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about the those vocals because the score is comprised of all these Max Martin songs, these pop hits that everyone knows so well. Many of them are just super iconic. How long did it take you to kind of separate out those versions in your mind that we all know so that you can find your own take on them? Is that hard?
you know, Honestly, it I approached it like how I would approach any theater or musical that I would learn from scratch, and I take the lyrics and I separate the lyrics into complete thoughts, complete sentences and phrases. That way I understand what I'm saying, therefore the audience can understand what I'm saying and what it is that my character wants. And also, how sometimes like you think you know a song, but then like you make up words to it and without even realizing it. So that's why I'm glad that I was able to just go through all the songs and really like learn them within the context of & Juliet.
What was there any particular one that kind of surprised you of like new meanings that you found in a song that you thought you knew already?
Mm, that's a great question. I mean, the song, like the iconic song Baby One More Time is the first song that I sing, and everyone knows that song. In this context, it's completely different because she is in a state of mind, a tragic state of mind where Romeo has just died and she doesn't know what to do. She's looking out at the stars, asking for an answer, from a sign from him. So it changes everything. And initially, um, some people, when they hear the first lyrics, they'll in the audience, you hear some giggles sometimes because you're like, it's this song, like, and my character puts on headphones to block out some of the giggles, but
Mm.
also to actually listen to this music herself. It's a jukebox musical, and the musical starts off with a jukebox on stage, and it ends with a jukebox on stage. And it makes our show so special, but it's also really really unique in that it this musical isn't about Max Martin. It's not about any of the artists whose songs we sing. It's a story of Juliet and her journey through womanhood and finding herself, discovering herself, and putting herself first.
Yeah,
Mhm.
very much. And you know, you sound so at home with this type of pop music. with this vocal styling. Was that always a place that you headed to when you were training, or what did you start out more traditional musical theater?
So I started singing actually in gospel music and gospel
Mm.
choir. And then I went to school, LaGuardia High School, for opera. I didn't know it was going to be opera until I got there. But it's so great because then I went to college. I went to University of Michigan with Ben, and we studied musical theater. And so now I have all of these worlds of gospel, jazz, R&B, pop music that I just, would run home to listen to, or the first thing I did when I woke up in the morning before I went to school. I would get ready and I would listen to Z100, and there would be Max Martin songs playing. So just the combination of all of these musical genres, I guess, is what I get to bring to this character
Hmm.
through music. And it's great. It's great that there are different musical styles like within our show. We have Paolo, who is an opera singer. And what I love about our show is that everyone's differences are celebrated and uplifted, and no one is being told you have to fit into a box. No, 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 quite the contrary. We're all allowed to express what makes us us, and embrace that, and love one another for our differences.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
do you think Anne Juliet does this look like anything like your fantasy of what a career
Oh,
was when you
oh,
thought
oh,
back
yes.
then?
Yeah. You said, does Anne Juliet look like a fantasy of what I would hope musical theater would look like?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yes, 100% completely. And even down to the choreography, like I would have never thought, I mean, well, we have Hamilton, and so that uses like hip hop dance moves. Our musical also uses hip hop and break dancing as a form of theatrical expression and storytelling. And it's so incredible to be able to blend in like Shakespeare, Elizabethan clothing styles with hip hop, and use words that um allude to Shakespeare, and there are references, but it's all modern, and it makes sense. And the story of Romeo and Juliet is told many times. This version is is the Anne Juliet version. where
Well,
yeah, where she it's just a story of friendship and multi-generational love, and it's so much fun. So much fun.
you touched on two things, kind of, the story of Juliet feeling empowered, and then this Shakespeare remix. Because one of the coolest things that I felt when I watched the show was witnessing the audience around me. There were a lot of families, and specifically a lot of families with young girls or teenage girls. And I could feel and hear the teenage girls like reacting to the largely very young cast and diverse cast of that story being told. But then also the parents were thinking about the recontextualizing of Shakespeare and the women characters in Shakespeare, and how maybe it wasn't, they weren't picking up on things earlier in their lives about it. What
Mhm.
have your interactions with audience members been like? Are they reaching out? Are you hearing that type of thing?
Oh, oh yes. Every day at the stage door, am mm, I just light up because of I see all of the children and teens, and especially like the young girls with their moms, and they'll just give me so many compliments, and their heart will be so filled. And they'll also DM me, on Instagram, and say how inspirational that this has been for them. And they'll ask me questions about whether like personal questions about life, their life journey and what they should do, or they're interested in musical theater and they see themselves in me, and they want to know, like, maybe they're in high school or middle school, and they love musical theater and they want to do this. So it definitely fuels me. And it's why I love doing what I do. I get to inspire and bring joy to so many people's lives.
And they all like are losing their mind during the show too. It's
Oh yeah.
not only high energy on stage, it's high energy
Yeah.
in the
And
audience. What
it's
is that
not
like?
just right. And it's not just the young people. It's really all ages too. It really is. And I mean, like Mel and Paolo have the number Teenage Dream that gets everyone like laughing, just like, in a dancing mood. It's so good. What was your question? So sorry.
Oh, I was just commenting on how the audience was so into it and what that might do for you on stage.
So at first, right, because during we were in rehearsals, we didn't have an audience, so we didn't know what to
Right.
expect. But as soon as previews started, we were like, oh, this is what they meant by, okay, the idea that Luke gave us, the director, was to try and keep it as intimate as we can on stage, because it is big, it can get big, and the audience is always going to be big, but we have to keep we have to keep something grounded in order for there to be like follow through with the storytelling and with the arcs of the characters. Because yes, it can be, especially those weekend performances, Friday, Saturdays, Sunday, it can get a little wild and rowdy, which is great. I love it.
And this is, your first starring role on Broadway, but you have been here before. You were last here in West Side Story, which is a very different type of show,
Yes.
and was also at a
Still
different
Romeo and
time.
Juliet.
It's still Romeo and Juliet, so this might it's an avenue for you.
I can't get away.
But I was just thinking about how different of a time that was as well, because that one
Mhm.
sadly was one of the many kind of shows that suffered under COVID and,
Right.
shuttered under COVID.
Hmm.
How does this experience with Anne Juliet compare to your past Romeo and Juliet experience on Broadway?
Yeah, I would say that this experience, for me, has been sort of similar to the experience that I had in my first Broadway show, Dear Evan Hansen,
Mm.
because the show, was already up and running in London. And so there was a version that they had, just technically wise, they knew what would work, like, staging wise and things like that. Um, but we were still able to have the same freedom as the experimental process that we had in West Side Story. Like, we were given the freedom to make choices that we felt we wanted in play. And it wasn't until maybe like 3 weeks in, a month in, that Luke was like, oh, maybe try this choice. Like, we were given that freedom, and we would have sessions and meetings and dive into the meaning of things, the importance of the characters and the stories that we're telling,
Mm.
especially as people of color, like stories of color, and people that are non-binary in our show. And we would have these discussions. So I just absolutely loved the process and the space and the environment that was created. It was so safe. It's why our cast is just, it's why we look like we're having so much fun on stage, because we actually are. We are really our family.
Yeah. It's great
Hmm.
to have that sense of play and experimentation, I would assume, too, when something has already existed. Do you feel like you still have room to put your stamp on it?
Oh, definitely. And there were changes that were made, from even from our version in Toronto to our version now. The show was cut down about 15 minutes. So yeah, but
Yeah,
it's all for the better, because it just helps with the overall like storytelling, and people taking away what, I guess, what Luke the wanted people to take from it. So.
sure.
Hmm.
Well, before I let you go, I we were talking about kind of Juliet feels very empowered in this show by the end of the production, and I think the audience feels very empowered too. I'm
Mhm.
curious, at what point in this musical do you, as Lorna, feel most empowered on stage?
I knew that was going to be your question. And that's why I love doing this musical, because I'm like everyone else. I have good days and bad days, and days where I feel like I'm doubting myself or my ability. And this show reminds me that, hey, like Mel says, you're effing perfect to me, you know? And it could really get me emotional, because everyone goes through that. Everyone has those hard times. And why I love playing this character is that I'm reminded that, oh, it's something that's internal. It's something that no one else can like give to you, or you have to like light your own fire within, and be a bright light, be unapologetically you, be still respectful and humble and grateful, but also know that it's okay to take space, to take up space, that you belong here, you are worthy. That's what I'm saying, and that's what I'm giving to everyone every night, and it feels wonderful. And I'm giving it to myself. I'm giving it to myself too. And it's a cycle. And it's a wonderful message. It's a
Yeah,
wonderful yeah, I could do it every day. Which I do.
which you do at least, 7 days or 6 days out of the
Yeah.
7 days of the week.
Mhm.
Well, it's a fantastic performance in this show, Lorna. So thank you for sitting here to discuss it with me. Everyone who's watching, subscribe to Gold Derby. Keep up to date with us throughout this entire season. And Lorna,
Yeah.
thank you once again.
Thank you, Sam. Bye. So nice meeting you and talking with you.